His name is Sam Guthrie. He's been a New Mutant, he's been an X-Men, and he's been an Avenger. You probably know him by his code name, Cannonball. In this series, I, Nando from Nando V Movies, talk about a character from Marvel Comics who is about to appear in Marvel Snap. I talk about their comic history, their powers, their personality, some interesting stories they've been a part of, and at the end of the video, I relate that to their Marvel Snap card. Is their card a good representation of this character from the comics or not? So if you like Marvel Snap, this video is for you. If you just want to learn about a Marvel Comics character, this is also for you because all that Marvel Snap stuff doesn't show up until the end. And we're talking about Sam Guthrie. He's a character that's been around for over 40 years. He first appeared in Marvel graphic novel number 4 by Chris Claremont and Bill McLeod. He is a country boy from Kentucky, and like, first of all, one of the things that's important about him, dirt poor. Like, that is one, and that's not something that like he wouldn't say himself, but like, he grew up in a coal mining town. His dad died in the coal mines. He had to get a job to support his, I want to say, 10 siblings that his mom was, supporting herself. He's the eldest boy of the Guthrie family, and he, went to work in the mines and make money when he was 16 to support his family. And these are the coal mines. These are not safe. People die in them all the time. He's caught in a mine collapse, and Sam almost dies, but his mutant power activates. He's able to escape. He saves one other person, and then he's like, whew, all right, cool. Everything's great. I survived that. Good. He gets scouted by a super villain, part of the Hellfire Club, who's like, hey, you want to do superhero stuff for us? We'll pay you. And he's like, absolutely. I would love to have some money, please. And I almost just got killed in the mine, so like, not psyched to go back there. So he joins the Hellfire Club for a little bit, fights the New Mutants, realizes he's the baddie now, and then switches sides and becomes a founding member of the New Mutants. Now, two things here. First of all, the New Mutants were sort of a group of X-Men that the purpose of them was the original X-Men had grown up. It's unclear how old any of them ever are, besides the point when they show up in the comics and they're like, I'm 12. And it's like, okay, great. Because of the sliding scale, let me just give you an example. So let's say, for example, a character like Cyclops, and I don't think this is exactly his age, like when he joins the team, but like, let's say he joins the X-Men when he is 14. He's on the X-Men as a high school aged kid for 4 years, and then when he's 18, he kind of graduates and becomes like one of the adult members of the team. Now that could be one other character show up, like Storm and Colossus and Nightcrawler, who you can also go, oh yeah, they're in their like 20s maybe. But a new class of mutant shows up at that time, and they are 14. So you figure by the time these New Mutants graduate, 4 years will have passed, and Cyclops will also be 4 years older. So you say he's maybe 22. This happens with another group of mutants and another group of mutants, and by the end of this, Cyclops is like 40, right? But the problem is, because of Marvel's sliding time scale, time doesn't pass the same way for an adult that it does for a kid. A kid will grow up and become an adult and like hang around kind of this zone between like 18 and 25 years old forever. That's kind of as old as most of the New Mutants have been since they stopped being children. But it's super unclear how old any of them are. And it only gets tricky when they start dating other people, and specifically when they start dating people who you're like, I'm pretty sure you are about 10 years older than this other person, but like, because the Marvel sliding time scale, it doesn't really work that way. It's complicated. Where was I going with this? Oh, so Marvel likes having characters that are young, right? Spider-Man is young. He can relate to the kids. The X-Men were young, but now they get old. So Chris Claremont introduces these new team of mutants, and they are called the New Mutants. It's Sunspot, Mirage, Karma, Wolfsbane, and then Cannonball. So that's the team. Now, Cannonball's powers are simple and complicated the more you get into them. Basically, as you can see in any image of him, I think you could kind of guess what his deal is. He can like fire himself in a direction and propel himself using like not nuclear, but like, I want to say it's like thermochemical explosions or something coming from his midsection down. And that turns him into basically like a human cannonball. Now he can control the direction he goes in. As he gets more skilled, he gets better control, and he can like fly and maneuver. Sometimes he can hover. But the important thing, and honestly the thing that is more important than that, is because you figure this guy can blast off, right? That's the word he uses a lot. He blasts and he goes in a direction. But like, how does he stop? Well, he just crashes into something usually. But when he crashes into something, he does not explode into a million pieces, because when he is in his flying, blasting cannonball form, let's say, he becomes nigh invulnerable, almost invulnerable. He can take lots of damage and create some sort of blast shield that he can sometimes use to shield other people too. So this shield can be used in creative ways and has been used in a bunch of creative ways by Sam to become more than just this big airbag he's going to use to save himself before he crashes into a wall, right? Like there's a lot to him. So let's talk about some of these relationships that are important to Sam. First one, he's good friends with Beto, Sunspot, because they're the only guys on this team. Now this team will change and eventually other characters come in, like Doug is a guy that joins the New Mutants eventually, but I would say for the most part, it is a team that if they were introduced now would be described as very woke by a bunch of jabronis online because there's more women on the team than men, and that can't happen. Why would you even do that if they're superheroes? You know, that's supposed to be all men, right? But like that's how this team is interesting, is like they did things that I would say like the original X-Men did not do as much of, right? Like they would just have a slumber party or all the girls would braid their hair and they'd be like, all right, you two just go, I don't know, shoot hoops or something in the basketball court while we're doing this. And they would do that. And I think one of the things that's so great about Sam and Beto is they're very similar in that they're both like, you know, guys around the same age who have superpowers, who are, you know, strong and invulnerable in their own ways. They both have similar kind of energy signatures too, right? They're explosive. Same way Sunspot has the crackles coming off of him and like he's on fire. Cannonball's also kind of on fire. So they have very physical powers, but they're very different people. Sam's very understated. He's a guy from Kentucky. He's very chill. He's nice. He's friendly. People like him, but he's not the center of attention the same way that Beto is. Like Beto's always had money. He's part of his family gets all complicated, but basically he's rich and he likes to be the center of attention. He likes to walk into a room and get a lot of attention, and Sam doesn't. So there's this nice odd couple thing they've got going on. This is similar to the first actual like relationship Sam will have, which is, I would say, the most important, well, not the most important one because I mean he's married now, but the one that I think of the most when I think of him is he dated Lila Cheney, who is essentially a superpowered rock star from space who could teleport. Now, she was this very punk bad girl from space who went on crazy adventures and stole all kinds of things with their teleportation powers. And he was like this nice boy who could fly from Earth, who, you know, grew up working to support his family. So again, we have that same kind of relationship. Big personality meets small country boy. I think they're fun couples because of how much they forced each other out of their comfort zone, especially for Sam's first big relationship in the comics. Like she is an interstellar rock star, but she has to come home for dinner to meet his mom because that's what you do when you're like a nice boy from Kentucky, and it causes problems because it's like she's not used to that. So she has to, you know, she realizes what's important to him and she dresses down a little bit, tries to be respectful, and it's very cute. And in that same way, he goes into space and does rock star stuff, and he's like, oh boy, this is not what I'm used to, but like, this is fun. Look at me, I'm going to get an earring or something. You know, like he's that kind of guy. I don't remember if he got an earring, but he did start looking a little bit more punk rock. They started dressing a little differently. They broke up because like, I want to say she's too old for him, but I don't know on paper how old she is. But B, it wasn't going to work out. And he was doing big New Mutants adventures with his New Mutant friends, right? Going into space, going back in time, going to Asgard, fighting a big evil bear. They're one of the more out there X teams. The only thing I can compare them to from around that same time is the Excalibur team, which would also go on wild adventures. That if you compared that to like what the X-Men were doing at that time, it just doesn't, they're not on the same level. And one of the things I think is cool about Sam is he's kind of the leader of this team. Sam Guthrie is not what Cyclops is. He's not calling all of the shots. He is a co-leader of the New Mutants with Danny Moonstar, aka Mirage, and it's kind of understood that he is the more empathetic leader of the team and she is the more tactical leader of the team. Not to say that like she isn't able to empathize with them, and not to say like he's an idiot, but you understand she's there for battle plans. He's there for, you know, emotional support and to like figure out things about who's going to work well together. And I think one of the things that people like about Sam, again, he's nice. He's just a nice guy. And you throw another character into a situation like this, like Wolverine and Scott or something like that, they're not going to work well together, right? They're going to butt heads a lot. And there were some moments where Sam and Danny didn't work together incredibly well. but more or less, he's very polite and she knows what she's doing, then they're a good team. Like, I like that dynamic a lot, because other times when that's happened with the X-Men, like say with the Academy X kids, it has become like a power struggle where like, I'm in charge, no, I'm in charge, I'm the better one, you're the better one. They didn't really do that, and that's cool. So next part of his story, he joins X-Force, which is kind of what New Mutants morphs into. Cable shows up and wants to lead a team of very cool 90s extreme Rob Liefeld X-Men. And I don't think the story is very good. Not that I don't think the storytelling is good, but like, okay. So there is the thing that happened in Marvel Comics where you got mutants, right? And they're great. They can do all kinds of cool stuff. But otherwise, they're just kind of like normal people, right? Like they're super powered. But besides, it's usually like this person, they got big horns, but besides that, normal guy. There was another subgroup of mutants that were even better than that, called the Externals. No, this is not the Eternals. That's a different thing. These were a bunch of mutants who also secretly, or at least unbeknownst to them until they learned it, could not die. They would be killed and then they would just respawn minutes later. And up until this point, the Externals were like super evil characters, or like you would see them and you'd go like, oh yeah, these are all like evil vampire-y dudes, or like Apocalypse and Selene and stuff like that. Sam's the first new one who's like just a nice guy. And he's the first one with powers that are just like fun little powers, not like, the power to reshape all of reality. It's just very, very, you can fly good. You can make a little shield, and that's nice. This story does not count anymore. I don't remember exactly how this was retconned, but I want to say it was as simple as a character going, oh, by the way, Cable was wrong about that. It seemed like you were an external. You weren't, though, so don't worry about it. And we haven't had to deal with that since, which is good because it's not fun. And it doesn't really work for Sam. Like, it's interesting to put him in that story, which is basically like X-Men Highlander. But at the same time, it's definitely not what's interesting about Sam. Like, it's not the most interesting thing he can be doing. So the idea of having him do this Externals thing, like if you ever read about it, like I said, mutant Highlander cannot actually die, can only be killed by an External. So that's like why it's Highlandery. And yeah, it does not count anymore. And it's why Cable was a good friend of Sam, why Cable like tried to kind of get close to Sam. It's because Cable knew, or at least thought he knew, that Sam was going to be an External, so he wanted to train him. But let's just say that didn't happen, and his powers are and have always been he blasts and he is nigh invulnerable when he is blasting. But Sam was on X-Force for a while, another, co-captain of this team basically with Cable. I feel like he was second in command, but then when Cable left, I think he took over. This also where Sam met his second important romantic relationship, which was Tabitha, aka Boom Boom. This is a mutant who can make little explosions, and she is another character, kind of like Lila Cheney, big personality, exciting, kind of bad girl who has a relationship with this nice little Southern boy. And, they were cute together. I think they more or less worked. I'm not surprised that they're not still together now, but like you can see when you look at that team, like, oh yeah, that's why these characters would work pretty well together. And see, those characters just have good chemistry, and they're similar. They're kind of part of a similar class of X-Men, as opposed to characters like Feral, who are kind of like their own thing. You'd see how like a character like Sam can go from New Mutants to X-Force to X-Men. Like he's got that. Whereas like a character like Feral, he just kind of shows up for X-Force stuff. You know what I mean? It's complicated. But Sam is like primarily associated with the New Mutants. Now, he does join the X-Men. There's a point where Cyclops is like, is this the next me, kind of? Is this the next leader of the X-Men? And Cyclops recognizes that Sam is sort of like a mini him, but not quite. Cyclops is a little more of a jerk than Sam is. Sam is just, like I said, Sam is nice. He's a nice country boy. He's got good morals, good head on his shoulders. He can make hard decisions, although he isn't quite as steeled with that as Cyclops is. But over time, I would say Sam goes through enough trials that he figures that out. Now, I'd say the other most important thing that happened to Sam, because like I said, Sam leaves X-Force, he comes back to X-Men, he does some New Mutant stuff with his New Mutants team members. But when Jonathan Hickman takes over the Avengers, starts doing Avengers stuff in the lead up to Secret Wars, the Avengers draft a large team represented on this big graph, like this big circle graph with little guys all connected to other guys. They decide, because they have not been great with the mutants so far, they should probably get some mutants on this team. Ones that will be good position players, people that work well as part of a group, people that work well together, and Iron Man and Captain America decide to draft Sunspot and Cannonball. So they're the two X-Men to join this big team of a ton of characters from different backgrounds that are there to solve like humongous world-ending problems. One other member of this Avengers team was Isabel Kane, who was the first human member of the Shi'ar Imperial Guard, which is basically a team of superheroes that works kind of like the Legion of Superheroes, led by the Gladiator, a character that keeps coming up here. She takes up the mantle of Smasher, joins the Avengers team, and over the course of their Avengers missions, Izzy and Sam fall in love and have a kid. And Izzy leaves Avengers stuff, and Sam goes with her to Chandelar, and then Sam and Izzy have a son named Josiah. They go back and live in Shi'ar space, although Sam is able to commute back to Earth and do stuff with Beto, who's in the process of reforming AIM and needs help from his best friend Sam. And since then, Sam goes back, does New Mutant stuff, does X-Men stuff, gets inducted into the X-Men, and nothing bad happens. Read those comics by yourself, the new X-Men comics where he gets inducted into the X-Men, and you can find out how that goes. One other thing about Sam that's important, he comes from a big family and a bunch of them are mutants, so he is not the only Guthrie mutant. His sister Paige joins Generation X, and she's, I don't know about the leader of Generation X, but she's for a while like the kind of POV character, at least in the beginning of those books. It's a mutant named Husk, and she can rip her skin off. Underneath that, she'll have other skin. So it works the same way as like Darwin, where her skin will, like become fireproof or become metal, give her new superpowers, but to do that, she has to rip her skin off. It's pretty weird. And that's Paige. He had another brother named Joshua, who was part of the Academy X group. So really, it's kind of fun. One of the things I like about Sam and the Guthries is you could conceivably, I don't know if you can do this now, but like you could keep doing this where like every new class of X-Men, like New Mutants, Generation X, Academy X, all has a Guthrie in that class. They're all different, but they all also feel kind of the same. And they have this legacy that, they were not the son of a space pirate or created by some super god or something like that. So they don't have all the destiny that comes with being an X-Men a lot of the time, but they do all have a connection to the X-Men through their older siblings. Josh dies, so he isn't an X-Men very long. He's killed by William Stryker. It's very dramatic. It's rough. Like, and he's a nice kid. His mutant code name is Icarus, and he can fly and has wings, and everybody likes him. But yeah, so Sam's siblings, it's been a mixed bag when they've joined the X-Men, but there could be more. Or they could have kids. I don't know where Paige is at. Maybe she has a kid that's older now and he can be an X-Man. Yeah, probably need to check out on some of those characters, but I would not be surprised if we see more Guthries in the future. Also, Sam has shown up in several different X-Men adaptations. He was the subject of the episode Hidden Agendas of X-Men the Animated Series. It largely follows the traditional Sam origin, except in this version of the story, Sam saves his dad from a mine collapse, and the Hellfire Club is not the organization that comes to recruit Sam. Sam also showed up in X-Men Evolution. He was one of the background New Mutant characters that would pop in and out of episodes. The similar Cannonball powers. He also had longer hair, which fit with this character in the design of X-Men Evolution. And then most importantly, Sam was one of the characters in the New Mutants movie. He was played by Charlie Heaton from Stranger Things. And I would say overall this adaptation of Sam, also good. He also had the traditional friendship with Beto. He had powers that I thought were visualized in a kind of cool way. The one big change to his origin here was not only did his father die in a mine collapse, but the mine collapse was caused by Sam's mutant powers, which I think honestly it's a pretty interesting twist. I kind of like it. Obviously, I don't ever expect this version of Cannonball to show up again, and I have a feeling if we do Cannonball in the new movies, we'll get a little bit younger, but honestly, I was pretty happy with most of the New Mutants in this movie. As far as reading recommendations go, there's obviously the original New Mutants written by Chris Claremont with art by Bob McLeod, Mike Gustovich, Gillis Ween, and Tom Orzechowski. New Mutants 42 specifically is that issue where Sam takes Lively Cheney home to his parents, written by Chris Claremont with art by Jackson Gucci, Kyle Baker, Elaine Lee, and Tom Orzechowski. I'm also a big fan of the 2009 New Mutant series, written by Zev Wells, with art by Diogenes Neve, Cam Smith, Edgar Tato, John Rausch, and Joe Caramagna. And then, of course, there's the Hickman Avengers, which everyone should read, written by Jonathan Hickman, with art by Jerome Opeña, Dean White, Justin Ponzer, Mari Hollowell, and Corey Petit. All right, so the Snap card. So Cannonball in Marvel Snap is a 5-cost, 8-power. As of now, these change all the time. And his on-reveal ability is he moves the highest power enemy card here away. If you can't, destroy it with a rock. So basically, Cannonball, you play Cannonball, he will target the highest power enemy card. So let's say there's like a destroyer or an apocalypse or something. he will push them into a different lane. And if he cannot push them because all the other lanes are full, or that card specifically cannot be moved, then he will destroy that card and put a rock there. So you cannot put another card there. I think this makes sense. He has the ability to blast over to the other side and push another character because he's going like incredibly fast, lots of power, nigh invulnerable blast shield. He can push pretty much any character. And if he cannot push them, what I guess he does is just like pulverizes them, because he does tend to make big craters where he lands somewhere. Like, so the rock being there, I guess, is a representation of that. Like, that space on the board is unusable. It's fun because Cannonball has become a blob killer. Specifically, Blob is a card who is trouble. He was a lot more trouble when he was created, before they gave him this 15 power kind of cutoff. Well, it's not a cutoff, but like he won't absorb all of the power of your deck anymore. But like, you can use Sam creatively to take a lane that you should lose and move somebody to another position where now you're going to win that lane, and maybe them being over there is bad. Like, I don't know. Move is an archetype that I really enjoy playing. It doesn't win as much as other ones, so I don't play it as much, but like, when it works, it's fun. So I think this interpretation of Sam is good, you know, because Sam is mostly associated with movement. So of course he's going to work in a movement deck, and Sam is very powerful, so he's going to be a threat to the other powerful cards. First characters he synergizes with, like, I wouldn't say he synergizes particularly well with Beto. He synergizes kind of well with Magneto, which makes sense. They have a history because of the X-Men, and because this was around the time when Magneto took over the X-Men. So like, if you're doing a deck where you're moving cards around the board a lot, he's going to be helpful there. We don't have a Smasher in Marvel Snap. It doesn't synergize particularly well with Magic or Danny, Wolfsbane. The New Mutants don't synergize very well together. I wouldn't say there's too many X-Men that Cannonball synergizes incredibly well with. They're not usually super move heavy. I will say synergize is interesting with Storm. If you're doing a lockout situation and you throw Storm on a location and then you throw Cannonball on that location, he will move the other card to just off that spot. So that can be good. And I guess he synergizes well with characters like Annihilus and Debris and that Clog meta, which hasn't been incredible and doesn't have that much like comic history synergy, but I would say that maybe is the other archetypes that people will use him in. I don't know. Overall, as a card, he's fine. I think his art is nice. I like that they gave him his Avengers costume, but also, besides the Pandart Spotlight Cash, which I love, he has a variant in his X-Men suit and a variant in his New Mutant suit. So you do have one of every version of Cannonball. I think the other thing about Cannonball that's fun is he's just like a very dynamic character. You know, he flies around the battlefield, so it's fun to put him in a book. And I think there could be some cool variants for him in the future, the same way that like Human Torch has a bunch of cool variants. They have similar looks. Overall, that's Sam Guthrie in a nutshell. He is nice. He dates bad girls. He has a humongous family, and he's been on a lot of super teams as kind of the leader, but he is most known for being a New Mutant. So if you enjoyed this video, give it a like, share it in groups that like Marvel Comics, in groups that like Marvel Snap specifically, so like, you know, subreddits, discords, all that stuff. I want to keep making these. It would help if people shared them, so then in those circles, like, you know, oh, new card, let's see what Nando's got. He's got some information about it. And yeah, I'm going to be doing one of these next week for War Machine. That's going to be something, because we got a lot to talk about with War Machine. And then Thunderbolts. Oh, am I excited for Thunderbolts, because I love them. I love the Thunderbolts. Follow me on Twitter. I'm Nando V Movies, and listen to my podcast, Mostly Nitpicking. That's all I got. Stay safe. I'll see you next time.